take the BBC. The BBC, I'm constantly hearing now, reading about how social media is full of disinformation, misinformation. Like, I think the difference between the two is that disinformation is deliberate. So let's just call it misinformation to not presume, again, malice. But the BBC is full of that. And we know that. We have countless examples of that. For example, the lab leak theory on COVID.
Yeah.
They were completely wrong on that. They reported that, and continue to report, that Iman Khalif, the boxer in the Olympics, is a woman.
Yeah.
This is a bloke, right? It's just a guy.
Is that?
Oh, yeah. I interviewed a developmental biologist to be sure, because I don't want to jump on these things.
Oh, I was reading about it and they said, oh no, we have no idea. There's no conclusive lab results, or so there are conclusive lab results that,
from what she told me, yes, and that's all I can go off of.
Yes,
there were 2 lab results. One was done in India, and one was done, I can't remember where else, but in 2 separate, Turkey, I think, 2 completely separate places. Both found male chromosomes.
Okay,
and that the IBA, the International Boxing Association, said, okay, obviously you can't be fighting women, obviously. And the Olympic Committee did something almost unprecedented, which was, because usually with each sport, they speak directly, they go with the sports authority, and they separated from the IBA.
Yeah.
Partly for other reasons. It is more complicated because of some sort, it's Russian-backed, it's a state-backed Russian thing. People think the Russians might be doing it because they were upset because Iman beat a Russian boxer. Okay. Seems like a bit of an extraordinary thing to do, to fake all these tests in different countries just for that.
Yeah.
But this could all be solved by Iman just doing a chromosome test and just saying, hey, here you go, see? And Iman is suing J.K. Rowling for abuse or something. So, yeah.
And not getting the test done.
Not, as far as I know, so far hasn't done that. So look, I'll eat my words if chromosome tests come out. But loads of people are coming out and saying, in Iman's defense, going, well, it doesn't matter about the chromosomes. There's loads of different sexes. To which my developmental biologist, Dr. Emma Hilton, said, no, there were 2 sexes. Because even when you see those lists, they say it's like X, X, XY, XXX. There's like lots of different chromosome patterns. They're extremely rare, apart from XY and XX. But they even put, look, these ones are the male, these are male ones and these are female ones. It's like, great, so there is only male and female, but they have different kinds of genetic disorders is what they really are. They're issues where things haven't grown. So she would have had, or he would have had, but she would have presented as a girl, as a baby, with a micropenis,
right,
which might have looked like a vagina. And throughout the years, through puberty, that probably has grown, and Iman will know that he's a man.
So in the developmental biologist that was talking to you was saying this person is somewhat intersex, the medical term intersex, but not female.
Yeah, what they say is that intersex is a misleading term.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, so they don't use it anymore.
Oh, they stopped?
Because the suggestion is you're between 2 sexes, and they're not. They're either male or female. And it does lead to weird things happening. There are men who, with the right kind, men with the right kind of science and weird stuff can get pregnant, and they're still men. That can happen.
Really?
Yeah, they get born with things that they still need medical intervention to make it grow in that way.
And do they come to full term and have a baby, or
it would have to be cut out? Yes. It's happened like once ever.
Yeah,
but it can happen, and that's really interesting. And it does mean that these things are more complicated than maybe I thought.
Yes.
But at the same time, that's not what Iman Khalif has. Iman Khalif is thought to be a man.
And the things were, I had a look at this a couple of years ago because I was like, this is driving me crazy. I can't believe what they're saying, which is the spectrum of sex, man, woman, man, woman, man, woman. And then, so I went and looked it up, and I looked up intersex, and I got into all the definitions. And by some of the definitions of intersex, I'm intersex. Because I don't...
The micropenis.
The micropenis.
Sorry, I won't leave that joke alone.
You can't leave my micropenis alone. If you're a man and you're just not producing enough testosterone endogenously, which I don't,
yes,
you're classed as intersex. I'm like, so am I trans now?
Yeah. You should go to the Olympics.
I should go to the Olympics. I was like, this is ludicrous. Okay, but you're telling me they've actually stopped. They don't use the term intersex now.
Apparently not. They use DSDs. I can't remember what that stands for.
Dysmorphias or something. Yeah.
But it's not dysmorphia, because that would be about trans. Dysmorphia is a mental issue. Like, I don't feel like I relate to my body.
Oh, this is purely biological.
This is a biological. That's it, which is why some people said it's not a trans issue with the Olympics. This was an issue of sex. However, it was a trans issue because the reason that the Olympic Committee distanced themselves from the IBA is because they have this gender identity as the reason. There's the way you, how you get chosen for men or women is gender identity,
which is that's you choosing.
Yes, which because of it's a trans ideology. That's why they've that's why they've started this.
And part of the trans ideology rests on the idea, a couple of ideas I've noticed. One is that there is this sort of spectrum of biological plumbing, which there are, as you would have discussed with that, it's extraordinarily rare. It's very, very rare.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it affects a large amount of people, which it doesn't. Do you know how many in the British population, how many people are gay by percentage, if you had to guess?
I don't know. There was something, it was in Alan Partridge once, he sort of mentioned it and he said, like, it seems a bit high. He said something like 7% or something, but is it less than that?
Most people, like myself included, for years I believed it was 10% because there was a psychology piece of research. That's what we were taught at university and I never challenged it. It's 2%.
Wow.
Yes. It's 2% in the UK. But the way it's presented, you would think 7 to 10%. It's a significant amount of our population. We've got to bring this issue forward and help people come out of the closet. Trans, less than 1%. But it's the issue du jour. And we're constantly talking about it for a fractional number of people. My background is psychology and therapy. Of course, I'm compassionate to people with mental health issues. But then I don't take therapy out into the main world and insist on people applying that. Why do you think this has become such a big deal? What's the purpose of this? Is there a purpose? Is there a conspiracy? Or is it just developed this way?
Well, I would add as well that intersex or DSD people, I think it's Amnesty International, they put out a statistic that it's something like 1.5% of the population or 2%. And it's an outright lie. It is simply a lie.
What they said, it was 1.5% of the population is trans.
Yeah, well, no, intersex.
Intersex,
or
sorry.
DSDs or whatever you call it.
Only if you class intersex as
you.
People like,
they were doing that.
People with low hormones.
That's why it got to 2%.
Right.
The real figure is something like 0.001. It's so low. By the way, one of the best books I've ever read is called Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides, and it is a coming of age book with a intersex kid.
Right.
Who doesn't know if they're a boy or girl because the parents were incestuous. I mean, it's we were talking about taboos before.
Yes.
It is like on the money for taboos, and it's wonderful, fascinating. So yeah, firstly, the reason I mentioned about Amnesty is again the point that I was making before about the BBC. These people are raging against social media with disinformation and all of that. Amnesty International, BBC is full of disinformation. And I say that not as a wild conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in conspiracy theorists. As I said before, I believe most people are trying to do good. I don't think there's someone pulling the strings. Obviously, sometimes there are bad actors, but I think in the most part, I don't believe in that stuff. But I am saying I have seen time and time again, BBC and all of these big channels and charities and things utterly lying or with Hanlon's razor, I suppose, getting it wrong, maybe not on purpose.
Did you ever work for mainstream media?
I sold my first documentary about exorcism, my first big documentary, to the BBC. I was then it won sort of best of 2018. It was like one of their best performing documentaries, lots of awards, film festivals. And when I went back to try and do more with them, I was pointed to all the production companies they work with. I spoke to about 50 to 100 production companies in a period of about 7 years. Every single one of them, not 99%, but 100% of them said to me halfway through, because you're a white man, you're going to have to be off screen. So we'll take your ideas, but you're going to have to be off screen and we're going to pretend that some minority, and I was like, who? And they were like, a minority, will be the presenter pretending it was their ideas. And I was like, that's not going to work because half these ideas are like in Bolivia, right? I speak Spanish. I've been speaking with the people that I want to make this documentary about for years. And they were like, well, that's it. We can't have new young white men as presenters.
So they wanted to buy your idea and then have somebody else front it.
Yeah.
And they were going to deliberately pick a minority to do that.
Yeah.
Isn't that a kind of racism from the other side?
Yeah.
Instead of oppressing people, you're unnaturally oppressing people is bad, but unnaturally shoving people forward because they're black or Asian or seems a little bit odd as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. I used to call it reverse racism and now I just call it racism. I mean, we know, and I know you know, that terrible things that have happened throughout history, if we are to buy into this idea of people think they're doing good, well, they can only happen then in a society that allows for it. In the 1930s, eugenics was all the rage. Obviously, Germany had been absolutely slaughtered just before in the First World War. They felt very much like they were victims, and they felt that they were victims through eugenics, these people who had different DNA and genes and were trying to get them. So they felt like they were doing the good thing. So it wasn't like we think and we see in the movies, it's like these horrible neighbors going, I'm going to get the Jew next door. It was going like, oh my God, one of those evil people's next door us. It was like, they felt they were in like the monster movie and the Jews were the monsters and they were the good guys.
Yeah.
And it's only ever going to happen that way. Whenever there has been like a really evil looking Nick Griffin, British National Party, they get less than 1% of the vote. Like nobody wants that because in our society, that's evil. But if you were born in the 1800s, slavery would be great. You'd be loving that. That's good. So we have to look really carefully. And Bertrand Russell talks about this. I never quote it well, but go with what is true and accurate, not what you wish were true or what would you believe would be good or have benefits for society were it true. And that's the problem we make time and time again. We think that it would be good for society if trans was a thing. Because we've bought into this whole identity thing. We've bought into the idea of civil rights for everyone, which is a great thing, but we're not very good in en masse at knowing when to stop and knowing when to just calm down, because that is the fashionable thing to do at the moment.